Welcome back to Sincere Deceit, version 1.1.2, my patch of the game. We will be doing the blue route this time. Some things before I start. I won't be talking to every single NPC this time around, because that takes forever. I will be talking to every NPC in the districts though, but not the zones. I'll also not be repeating all no-clip secrets. I'll mostly only be doing the ones that give me items. And of course I'm going to be doing every no-clip secret that is exclusive to the blue route. I'll also be doing the things that I could not do in the red route, like not talking to Lexi until the industry district, and I will also not be speaking to Jessica at the first opportunity to see how that dialogue plays out. I think that might be it. But there's also some things that I was not able to show the first time due to my anxiety, but I can do so now. Alternatively, and lastly, yeah, Zafkiel really does not like you naming yourself after Hugo. This is the only other instance in Sincere Deceit where Zafkiel displays the ability to force crash the game. The only other time is in the secret area, but it's part of a no-clip secret. And how he behaves in that no-clip secret is OOC. So it's not easy to really determine if that's properly representative of what he can actually do, or if it's just for the funnies and it's breaking the bounds of what he should be capable of. But since this is in character, that means he does canonically have the ability to crash the game. I didn't do this before at the beginning of the red route because my brain was just so frazzled, because this is the first time I've ever made videos. But it makes sense to do so now because of the red route being done. You know all their names, you know the story. But still, like before, I'll be doing Smile. for consistency and also just to see all secrets. Though I'm not going to be going through every single smile related secret because like we've already seen them. As I said before, I am not disabling them because I don't want to ever go through that ever again with Japhet, with the burning and furious in the mute. I think he does mute. It's annoying. Did you know back in Find Me, the disabled add-ons and don't disable add-ons options were switched, and that disabled add-ons was the default? So if you're just someone who's just spamming the enter key, you're going to end up accidentally disabling the add-ons and have to start the whole intro over again. So I'm glad they swapped that. One thing I also did forget to mention at the title screen is that I'm going to be going through the blue route in the way I personally perceive it to be done, the way it's intended to be done. That does not mean that this, like, oh, if you don't do it the way I do it, that means it's wrong. It's just that based on the story, from what I've seen, that doing these actions and like the way I do is the most thematically fitting. To explain, like, right off the bat, to explain right from the start, I will not be getting the supreme items. The moment I complete each district, I will just be heading on to the next zone. The intent of this is because with the blue route, you're supposed to be like having the wool pull over your eyes, like quite literally. You're supposed to be trusting Zafkiel's word. You're not supposed to know anything about like Abram and like things that would shift your perception of him, because the District Guardian's memories like show to you, like even just from Malachi, that Abram is not the monster that Zafkiel paints him as. And at that point you would immediately just begin to distrust him. So avoid, like, foregoing the supreme items and memories ends up working in Zafkiel's favor to make you continue trusting him. This also ends up making it more fitting because Off doesn't really have like a whole like super in-depth story, and Zafkiel is quite literally a purist, and he prefers things to be exactly as the original Off, whereas Abram expands upon things and has like more story and like more depth to the characters and the world. A lot of what Off is more like subjective and up to interpretation, but a lot of like the symbolism is kind of like surface level stuff where each person derives their own deeper meaning from it. That's typically what Zafkiel wants, and by like just going onto each zone and not learning about the people and whatnot, not caring, not opening your heart to the characters, is a lot more in line with what Zafkiel is like. So that's the type of blue route I'm going to be doing. Even though I'm not doing the combat tutorial, I do want to talk about how. Oh, wait. I do want to talk about how it. About the dialogue that's in it, or at least what I can remember about it, is that when you do the tutorial, and if you like don't do exactly as Batter says, like do things like I think preemptively. He asks if you actually do need the tutorial and want to continue following what he says, or if you just want to like go like remove the you just want to just do things in your own, removing the safety wheels. And I like that it does have that option where you can like if you maybe say yes by accident, but then you just do things on your own, that he says, oh, do you actually need this tutorial or not? And you can have another option to say no. I try not to speak during battles, not only because of the music being loud, but also because I cannot focus on speaking and doing the battle at the same time. I'm only using some of these orbs now is because, like with the Virgo orbs and Scorpio orbs, I'm always going to use them on the batter. And like the Capricorn, I'm always going to end up like using on Alpha. So there's no point in me like holding off on them. Well, not always use Spirit orbs and Alpha because I think I also need them for Epsilon, but things like defense, HP, CP, that I have to hold off on. And while I will not be speaking to every NPC again, I'm still going to be doing every wide angle. One thing about the massive amount of silver flesh you get that might seem like ludicrous, especially this early on, is because in Find Me, you barely got any silver flesh, and it made getting through the mines extremely difficult. Because because of how the combat was in Find Me, the game was harder, and then you don't have CP restoring items. That makes it even worse. So they give you like a lot of silver flesh to like try to mitigate that as much as possible.